Hey everyone, this is Dave from Some Memories. I'm really excited to be talking about the newest and most recent release from the house of Roja Parfums. This is a Bergdorf Goodman's limited exclusive 100 bottle release. Super excited to talk about it. So if you want to know more about it, how it smells like, and its presentation, don't go away. So welcome back everyone. Before I actually get into the review itself, if you haven't already, I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel by hitting that little subscribe button down below. That way when I do upload new content, you'll be the first to be notified about this. So this fragrance is the newest release from Roja Parfums. For those of you who don't know, Roja Parfums is a niche fragrance house. This is a limited edition Bergdorf Goodman exclusive in New York City. It is a 100 bottle release, so they're only creating 100 bottles worldwide. Once that sells out, it will, supposedly they're gonna stop making any new bottles after that. We will see what happens. But this particular release is a Bergdorf Goodman exclusive, so it's only available from the Bergdorf Goodman website, or if you were lucky enough to get a bottle a couple of weeks ago or a few months ago. So before we actually get into the actual bottle and the actual fragrance itself, let's discuss the presentation. This particular release, as I mentioned, is a 100 bottle limited release. A lot of people, like myself, were pretty disappointed and upset when we saw the presentation. If you compare this to other releases like Love or Manhattan Parfum, we were expecting the presentation to be on par with the other limited edition releases. So this fragrance does retail for $1,100. If you were able to get it during the Bergdorf Goodman exclusive event, they had a gift card event, you were able to get about $250 off. So it came to about $900, around that with taxes. That being said, this is the actual presentation of the box that it came in. So this is the actual box. It has Bergdorf Goodman written here on the top, limited edition on the bottom. This is the actual building of Bergdorf Goodman. It sits in this little square box here in the actual presentation. I was upset. I was pretty disappointed. For the price point, for the actual, the value of this fragrance, for the $1,100 that it costs, for the fact that it's a 100 bottle limited release, I was expecting and was under the impression it was going to be a lacquered box like Love came in or like Manhattan Parfum came in. So I think it should have came in a lacquered box like this. This is my great written presentation. It would have looked so much better if it came in this beautiful white silk inlay here. It would have looked a lot more regal, a lot more elegant. I think it would have matched, I think the presentation should have matched the price point of the bottle and also what it's meant to represent, which is Bergdorf Goodman, which is a staple and iconic institution in New York City. I think Roja Parfums really did a great job with the bottle, which I'll show you in a second. But the presentation, I think they cheaped out, and I think they undervalued the fragrance because the presentation does not match the bottle. So that was really disappointing. Myself and a lot of other fragrance collectors were also on the same page about this. So that's my personal opinion. So this is the actual bottle itself. So it comes with this beautiful, beautiful bottle. I love this bottle. Sorry for the reflection. But you can see it has Bergdorf Goodman here on the plaque, Roja Parfums on the bottom, and again, the building of Bergdorf Goodman. The plaque itself is this really nice thick gold plaque. It's a really, really nice bottle. In terms of the actual bottle quality, it's a fantastic presentation from the bottle purposes. It comes with the cap, so the crystal clear cap that you see here is the same kind of cap you might find on like Crystal Oud, for example. So the bottle itself is great. I do love this plaque though. I think it's really, really nicely done. And it sits really beautifully in my collection. I think if you have this in your collection, I'm sure it looks great. I just think that the presentation itself would have, if they, instead of this box, if they put it in this presentation here. So imagine if it was sitting in this kind of box here, right? So if it was sitting in here, how much better does that look, right? Versus the box that it came in. So if anyone from Roja Parfums is watching, I hope you guys do take notice because this is very disappointing. Now, with that being said, the fragrance itself is great. It is, again, a 100 bottle limited release. So hopefully it stays that way. We know what happened with Manhattan Parfum, which was launched as a limited release, and then they released an EDP version to the whole wide world. So it then became a no longer limited edition release. So I do believe this will stay 100 bottles, and I don't think they're going to re-release this again. So we'll see what happens. Now, with the actual fragrance itself, this was created to commemorate the 10th anniversary of Roja Parfums being at Bergdorf Goodman. And when Roja Parfums created this fragrance, and even says so on this card, when you buy or if you have bought Bergdorf Goodman limited edition, it came with this card here. Now this card is basically a certificate of authenticity. It tells you that, hey, I bought this fragrance. This is a legit fragrance. It came from Roja Parfums. It tells you a little bit about the actual bottle. It tells you that it was, created for Bergdorf Goodman to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Roja at Bergdorf. And it does describe that this was basically taken inspiration from Goodman's Parfum. So Roja himself does kind of say that we took inspiration from Roja Parfum, from Goodman's Parfum, and we essentially kind of reworked it. What I love about this is that Goodman's Parfum and Semi Bespoke 10 are some of my favorite fragrances in the Roja portfolio. I can rank them in my top 10 favorite list of Roja fragrances. I absolutely love Goodman's, and I love Semi Bespoke number 10. Now, spoiler alert, this does smell really close and really similar to a mix of Semi Bespoke number 10 and Goodman's Parfum, along with a couple other fragrances, which I'll mention in the next few minutes. I think they could have made this a little bit more unique. I know they took inspiration from Goodman's. They wanted to rework Goodman's Parfum and make it a kind of a celebratory anniversary-like edition. I think if they were, me personally, I would have liked to see this be a more special fragrance, a little bit more unique, a bit more outside of the box thinking. I think that they could have maybe added a different twist to it, that it would have made it stand out more and not be kind of a redundant fragrance if you already own Goodman's or if you already own Semi Bespoke 10. So in that sense, it's a little disappointing because if you own either of those fragrances, this may be redundant, but I think it's still a great collector's piece. Now, with that being said, let's spray this and let's see what we get. So like all Rojas, a great atomizer, a great spray. I'm already getting wafts of this in the air. So off the bat, like other Roja fragrances, you get this lively, bright bergamot paired with this bitter, sort of sweet mandarin orange. So the citrus notes do pop up, and they're very lively in the beginning. Unfortunately, they only last about 10 to 15 minutes on my skin before they die away. But this is a brighter opening than Goodman's and Semi Bespoke 10. So the opening here is more vivacious. But as you start getting into the mid, that's where this becomes a little bit different. So this is a little bit of a sweeter, softer fragrance than Goodman's and Semi Bespoke 10. By no means is it a sweet fragrance whatsoever, but the mid starts getting this little bit of soft and sweetness to it. So what you get in the mid is you get this May Rose. The May Rose here has this kind of green floral, hints of honey nuance to it with jasmine, which is powdery. The jasmine is paired with the May Rose, so the powderiness of the jasmine helps offset some of the sweetness from the May Rose. And you also get hints of ylang-ylang, and the ylang-ylang here is giving this more of a green, floral aspect to the fragrance. It almost has this herbaceousness that starts lending itself to a softer, herbaceous, sweeter heart. So that's where this becomes a little bit different than Semi Bespoke 10 and Goodman's. So you have that soft, sweet kind of mid with that floral green undertones, and then as it starts drying down into the base, that's where this fragrance really grounds itself in those mashups of different fragrances that I was telling you about. So it does have similarities to Goodman's Parfum and Semi Bespoke number 10, but you also get this vetiver, and the vetiver here is grassy. It's kind of the vetiver here is dry and grassy, and it reminds me of a little bit of Semi Bespoke 14. It's not as sharp as Semi Bespoke 14, but it has that same kind of vetiver, dry grassiness to it that you see in Semi Bespoke 14. You also have the cedarwood here, and the cedarwood here is a little bit sylvan. It's a bit timbered. It has that green, earthy nuance to it. And it also reminds me of Semi Bespoke 14 a little bit, but it also has that green vibe of that Goodman's Parfum has. Now, as you start getting even more into the base, that vetiver and cedarwood is paired with this combination of spices like coriander and cardamom and cinnamon. Now the coriander here is it's kind of zesty, it's a little bit nutty. If you've ever taken whole ground coriander, or just crushed it in your hands and kind of rolled it in your hands and let the essential oils kind of seep in, and you smelled it, coriander has this kind of zesty, nutty, almost citrusy nuance to it. And it's paired with and married with this frankincense note. The frankincense here also reminds me a little bit of Semi Bespoke 14 as well, where here it's a little bit resinous in Bergdorf Goodman's. It's a little bit resinous. It's almost piney with almost like a syrupy-like texture to it, where at Semi Bespoke 14, it's definitely more incense driven. Here it's more piney, more woodsy, but it starts giving that combination to the vetiver and the cardamom. The cardamom it stands out on my skin. It is one of the few notes that really pops when I smell it. And here it's peppery, it's lively, it's peppery, it's not overly bombastic, but it definitely is one of the main prominent spices that you smell in this fragrance. And it reminds me of a lot of Semi Bespoke 10 and as well as Goodman's, because the cardamom note in those two fragrances is pretty prominent as well. Yeah, I mean, it's really beautiful, and it's also married with the cinnamon note. The cinnamon here is very subtle, it's slight, but it gives a warming, kind of cozy sensation to the fragrance. Now, as it dries down more and more, what I pick up a lot is patchouli. The patchouli here it's not a damp patchouli. It's more of a green, sort of earthy patchouli, and the patchouli here sort of reminds me and lends itself a bit to Semi Bespoke 26, just a little bit. It's not nearly as prominent. It's not a center focal point like you'll find the patchouli in Semi Bespoke 26. But I get a lot of patchouli and a lot of vetiver. So this starts becoming a very green, very earthy, sort of floral, with different spices, kind of a base where you get that earthiness, that vetiver, the patchouli, those timbered, forested nuances, and the spices. So you kind of start getting this earthy, kind of very grounded, earthy, green fragrance that kind of smells like Semi Bespoke 10, a little bit of 14, a little bit of 26, and then of course of Goodman. So you get kind of a mashup of those kinds of fragrances, and it really, for me, it's nothing special in terms of its uniqueness. It's not groundbreaking. Is it a beautiful fragrance? I think it's a beautiful fragrance. I mean, I love Goodman's and Semi Bespoke 10. They're some of my favorite Rojas, but for me, this should have been a little more unique and a little bit more outside of the box thinking. In terms of projection, I get about 2 hours on my skin projection, well, 1 to 2 hours on my skin projection wise, and then it starts kind of settling into a skin scent, where I can still smell it throughout the day. So I can still get wafts of this fragrance as I'm kind of turning my head or if I'm walking around. I still pick up the scent profile, but it's not pushing off my skin. I get about 6 to 7 hours of longevity. It makes throughout most of the workday. I can still smell this, but it's not a beastly fragrance by any means, especially given the fact that it is a parfum concentration. This is, I think, appropriate for a lot of different occasions. I've worn this in dressier settings, like going out to a nice dinner. I've worn this casually. I think this will be great going out to a nice show or to a fancy occasion, but this can definitely be worn in a casual setting. This is a unisex fragrance. It doesn't lean ultra masculine. It doesn't lean ultra feminine. It's right down the middle. I think this would be great this time of year, but this can really be worn all seasons. I really don't think it's going to be offensive to anyone. It's a very regal, very classy fragrance. It does have that sense of regal kind of aspect to it. But for those who don't have it, I think if you do want to own something special in your collection, I think that either if you don't have Goodman's, if you don't have Semi Bespoke 10 or Semi Bespoke 14 or 26, I think this will be a great addition. I think this is a wonderful addition to have as a collector. But again, this is not something you need to own. It is redundant if you own any of those other fragrances, especially Goodman's or Semi Bespoke number 10. So that's my review of this one. I think it's a good release overall. I'm not super thrilled with it. I think a lot of us were disappointed in some of the aspects of this launch, mainly given the presentation and for its price point and the fact that it's not a unique scent profile. So I would love to know your thoughts on this one. By the way, a quick shout out to my PC family if you're watching this. So I would love to know your thoughts on this one. Have you smelled this release? Have you smelled any of the other Goodman or semi-bespoke 10, 14, or 26 fragrances that I mentioned? What's your favorite Roja fragrance so far? And what fragrance are you really looking forward to for 2024? I would love to know. So that's it for this review, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great, happy, and healthy new year, and I'll see you guys at the next review. Take care.